This is a Film Stories original podcast.
Here in America, work is in trouble. We've offshored our manufacturing, sent away good jobs, and lost so much ability to make things. American Giant is a company that's pushing back against this tide. They make high-quality clothing, sweatshirts, jeans, dresses, jackets, and so much more right here in the USA. Visit American-Giant.com and get 20% off your first order when you use code STAPLE20 at checkout. That's 20% off your first order at American-Giant.com. Promo code STAPLE20.
We made this.
Welcome back, everybody, to the X-Cast. As ever, the truth is in here. And thanks for joining us. I'm your host on this one, Carl Sweeney, and we are back with I Want to Believe Minute, which is the daily series we're doing at the moment where we go through the second X-Files movie 1 minute at a time. And in this one, we're looking at minute 15 of the film, which starts at the 14-minute mark as a conversation continues between Whitney, Mulder, and Scully. And it goes through to 14 minutes and 59 seconds as Mulder and Scully and the FBI agents approach Father Joe's dorm in Richmond, Virginia. And Clara Cook is back with me to go through this minute. Hello, Clara.
Hello, Carl.
How's it going?
Good, very good. I'm ready for my next minute.
Yeah, and possibly, I think the last one we're doing for now, but hopefully we'll be back together later in I Want to Believe Minute. But yeah, let's conclude this scene. But before we get going, actually, a quick reminder that you can follow the X-Cast on social media in various places, including X and Instagram and Facebook. And if you're enjoying the show, we would love you to drop us a quick rating and review on Apple Podcasts. And it doesn't have to be, a long review. Just, take 30 seconds to drop us a one-line review. That'd be great. And a quick 5-star rating. And we'd really appreciate it if you could do that. Don't forget that you can subscribe to our Patreon, patreon.com/GXcast for early releases of episodes and various bits of bonus content over the years and more. Okay, Clara. So, like I said, there was kind of a conversation here which continued into this minute, which we were talking about previously, where Mulder's kind of interesting here because he's asking them why would they doubt Father Joe's visions if they've got no reason to doubt him. And it's funny because you can kind of see Whitney wanting to cut in. She says, well, there's this question of credibility, and Mulder comes back in again if I was, I'd be in bed with him kissing his holy ass, is what he says. And that's when Dakota Whitney says, well, he's a paedophile. So, it all builds, I suppose, to Mulder's line, which is designed to get laughs, isn't it, from the audience, where he says, well, maybe I'd stay out of bed with him. So, what did you make of that exchange, Clara?
I actually did laugh at that. I think it's the reaction of everyone in the room as well. Like when he says it,
shifting uneasily.
Yeah, the shifting, and everyone there's like an uncomfortable silence, and they all kind of look at each other. And then when she says, well, he's a convicted paedophile, and then Mulder kind of goes, well, maybe not in bed with him. Like it's just Mulder. It's Mulder's expression as well. It's just like, oh, okay. Yeah, I thought it was pretty funny. It's very Mulder is good at making jokes, and I do think David Duchovny has good comic timing. Actually, I think both of them have been funny in the series, and it's nice to see a little bit of light humor in an otherwise very, I say light. Is it light? I don't know. Maybe like dark humor.
It's quite dark, I think.
In an otherwise very dark, like non-humorous film. There's not much to laugh about really with this kind of storyline. So,
although there's kind of a moment, isn't there? I think it's probably in the next minute, so it's probably what the people podcasting on the next episode will they'll probably mention it more. But I think there's some more levity there where they're at that dorm and they say something like, "Well, we better avoid the activities room," or whatever it is. So there are a couple of moments where the jokes are fairly dark and near the knuckle. Which
and then towards the end of the film, there's an exchange between Skinner and Scully in the car, which is quite funny when Scully looks at. I mean, Gillian Anderson's very good at looking incredulous. Do you know what I mean? Like,
Is that when Skinner says something like,
he wouldn't do anything
I'm sure Mulder wouldn't do
crazy.
anything too, yeah.
Yeah,
Too
and she
crazy.
kind of slowly turns and looks at Skinner with like
Do
sort
you
of a
even
real
know this man?
a side eye, like what? He's like, nothing too crazy. Yeah, so there is some humor. Yeah, so I thought it was pretty funny. Yeah, what about you?
It's pretty, yeah, I thought it was fairly amusing. And, although that moment in particular is played for laughs, I suppose all of this is getting at quite a big part of the film, isn't it? This idea of, can Father Joe be trusted? And then I suppose the implications coming from that, like if he is on the level and these things he's saying are true, you get into sort of discussions then about, well, why is God sending his messages through is it God sending these visions to him? Why is he doing it through this person who's a criminal in this way? So I think although it's a comic exchange, that's actually setting up something that's going to run through the film, isn't it?
Yeah, and it's interesting because it sets up a conflict between Mulder and Scully as well. And I think that normally it's Mulder who has the emotional feelings about something and Scully who's the skeptic. And though she is skeptical of Father Joe, it is very much rooted in her feelings of him as a priest who has abused kids, and also abused his situation. And also as a defender of children, like we see her in the hospital forming a connection to this boy. Like, we've seen Scully defend children throughout the series. Whereas weirdly, Mulder seems much more calm about this. I'm not saying that he's like, yeah, I want to be buddy with a paedophile. He's not like that at all. But he's more willing to, I guess, keep an open mind in this situation. He's calmer. Whereas immediately Scully's like,
because Scully's
disgusted.
I was going to say, she seems very morally kind of outraged, doesn't she, when
Yeah.
they first go to see Father Joe?
Yeah.
But I mean, in terms of like, we don't really see him here, do we? Because at the end of this minute, they just turn up at those dorms. But we've talked a lot about the casting, I think, in the previous episodes. So how do you feel about Billy Connolly in this film? Because, I mean, firstly, going to see this film in 2008, presumably you would have known who Billy Connolly was, but what would you have known him from, do you think? Or did you know?
I did know who he was. I think I knew him from stand-up comedy. I mean, not that I was watching a lot of stand-up comedy. I haven't really paid much attention to Billy Connolly or his career, I'm sorry to say. I think I would have known him as a stand-up comic. I think I might have seen him on television maybe once or twice, like presenting something or being I think he did maybe like a travel documentary or something. I wouldn't have thought of him as a serious actor. I think I was a bit shocked to see him in this role in 2008. I think, if anything, him in this role has aged better. He's less famous now, perhaps. And so, in a weird way, I find him more believable now than I did when I first watched it. If that makes sense. I don't know if that just feels more real.
Yeah, although he had done some serious acting prior to this, because have you seen the film Mrs. Brown with?
Oh yes, you're right. He was in
Judi
Mrs. Brown.
Dench,
Yeah,
which
right.
I think was quite a few years before this, and I think maybe one or two other things. But I think I said to Tony that I probably at about this time I would have recognised him from chat shows like Parkinson or whatever, where he was normally quite a funny guest. I'm not sure I'd watched any of his stand-up comedy myself at that point. So what about this? We only see the very start of it, but they go to that dorm, don't they? Which is where they say the various habitual sex offenders are housed.
Didn't she say they police themselves?
Yeah, which I was wondering about the logistics of that. I don't know if you have any insight into that, but that seems somewhat odd. I'm guessing they're not considered the most high-risk people or something, but I don't know.
I think that this sort of thing does exist. I seem to recall, I don't know if it exists a lot in the US, but I think it does exist. I'm fairly sure something like this exists. I remember watching a documentary about a prison in Norway that was basically a prison without prison walls or bars or anything. And it wasn't just sex offenders, it was convicted violent criminals. But they were living in a situation like this. They were living in housing and dorms. And they were sort of policing themselves. They were living on an island. They weren't on the mainland of Norway. But I mean, they could have got a boat and left the island. But it was like it's a different type of incarceration, should we say. I mean, I guess, I don't know if you could call it, it's a different type of incarceration. It's a different kind of prison. And they were sort of like, there's like their own sort of self-sustained community. So it's a bit like that, I suppose, except maybe not as forward-thinking. I don't know. Then these guys have been released. They're not in prison. They've been released. So I guess they would be on probation, I suppose. But not considered dangerous enough to be sent to a psychiatric facility. So I guess considered not enough of a danger to the public. But I would assume that they would have rules. When they say police themselves, they would have rules where they probably can't go within a certain distance of a school or have contact with children. There's probably certain jobs they can do. I'd imagine that's the kind of environment that they're supposed to be living in. But the whole place is presented creepily, right? So
they arrive at night, don't they?
I do feel like it's sort of presented a little bit as if they arrive at night. It's not a particularly nice looking place. The guy that answers the door is kind of creepy. He's presented as creepy, isn't he? Whether or not he's harmless or not, we don't really know. But like, I don't know. I'm not sure he's being presented as a good thing, this location. It's not like I don't feel like Whitney's saying, these gentlemen are rehabilitating themselves in society. That's not what she's saying. She's like, this is where they live. Like, as in, this is the only place we can put them all together, and they police themselves. But they still seem like a threat, don't they? Kind of.
Yes, I would agree with that. And yeah, I don't know of anything else really on this minute in terms of the behind the scenes stuff. Chris Carter said that a lot of recutting was involved in that scene at the FBI, the discussion. Actually, it was very, you might not think of it really, because it's quite a dialogue heavy scene, but it was very intricate in certain ways to put together.
I guess multiple shots of people's faces, right?
Yeah.
And where people are positioned in the room and
who you cut to at what time and all that sort of stuff. He said that Gillian Anderson looked very beautiful in that scene at the FBI. So
she does. Yeah. She's
a
very, very attractive lady.
Was and is, yeah, absolutely. I don't know, Clara, that scene of the dorm is set in Richmond in Virginia. I mean, do you know much about the state of Virginia? Or specifically Richmond?
My aunt lives in Richmond, Virginia.
No way.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know if she lives near any dodgy, I don't know, halfway houses. But no, yeah, my aunt lives in Richmond, Virginia with her husband. She's not originally from Richmond, Virginia. She moved there to be with him. But I can't say I've ever been there. So I don't know much about it. No. I assume Richmond in Virginia is named after the Richmond in London, right?
Okay, yeah. So there's a website, magnoliagreen.com, which has got an article about 12 fun facts to know about Richmond, Virginia. And one of them is that Richmond was named after the English town of Richmond because the view of the James River was very similar to the view of the River Thames from Richmond Hill in England.
Well, that's kind of nice. I mean, I'm sure it had a name before that, but
yeah,
we'll go with this one.
There have also been some famous people associated with Richmond in Virginia, including Edgar Allan Poe,
Ooh.
Interestingly, but also a couple of famous actors. I don't know if you'd want to have a hazard a guess, Clara. Famous actors born in the 1930s.
In the 1930s?
Yeah.
Oh my
but both still alive, though.
Still alive?
Hang on. I'm going to query those dates, because actually I'm not sure these actors are that old. Hang on. Oh, no, hang on. Yeah, one was born in 1937, and they're siblings.
What?
And the other was born in 1934.
And they're siblings?
They're siblings, yeah. And one of them, I seem to remember you telling me once that you are a big fan of hers, because she is Shirley MacLaine. And the other is her brother, Warren Beatty.
Oh, wow. And they were born, wow. Yeah, I'm a big fan of Shirley MacLaine. I actually kind of didn't know they were related.
I suppose different surnames.
I'm sorry, I didn't know they were related. I'm a fan of Shirley MacLaine's work. I don't actually know that much about her, obviously, because I don't know where she was born. I don't know who her brother was.
It's funny.
Or is.
It's kind of startling to realise they're both as old as they are, actually.
Yeah.
Shirley MacLaine is 89 years old.
I just saw
at the time
her.
Of recording.
I just saw her in Only Murderers in the Building.
Yes, that's right.
She did a good job. Yeah, she was good.
Yeah. And Warren Beatty is slightly younger than her, but still in his 80s as well. Canned beer made its debut in Richmond in 1935 when the Gottfried Kruger Brewing Company delivered 2,000 cans of beer and cream ale to something called the 804. I don't know what it is. There's one other thing. So famous poets, famous actors. Apparently, rodents playing basketball is a thing in Richmond, Virginia, because at the Science Museum of Virginia, there are conditioned rats playing on a tiny court, working to put a tiny ball through a tiny hoop. So who knew about that? I never knew there was such a thing as rat
like
basketball.
A tiny. I was like, when you first said it, I was trying to imagine. I was like, how big are the rats? Are we talking about? Like in Richmond, Virginia, do they have mutant
like 6
rats?
foot tall, 6 foot tall shooting hoops? No,
when you were like tiny ball, I'm like, okay, fair enough, that makes sense.
Yeah, I think ordinary sized rats, not an ordinary sized basketball court, is my assumption.
I mean, rats are very smart, so they're smart for rodents. I guess I don't know how smart other rodents are, but I did know someone that had pet rats, and they were very intelligent and required a lot of entertaining and stimulation in order to live healthy, happy
in terms
lives.
of what, like how do you entertain a rat exactly?
Well, like so we used to put on musical revivals. No, we used to put on shows. No, they like like toys and puzzles and little mazes you can put them in. They liked a lot. They like little running wheels and like little tubes like that. She had a big cage that was quite intricate with lots of different obstacle courses and stuff. And they also liked little toys. She had a tiny little stuffed teddy bear that she gave one of them, and he loved it. Little rat carried it everywhere. I don't know if he knew it was a teddy bear, but he knew it was something that was enjoyable. And they liked climbing on us and in our pockets, and they did really look at you. They really looked at us. When you make eye contact with a rat, you really feel like you're being looked at.
The rat is thinking, play basketball with me.
But yeah, they didn't smell particularly great.
Do you think?
They were cute.
Do you think they get a bad? Because I feel like people are more friendly to mice than rats. I think with mice or with rats, people kind of are creeped out by them. But is that a bit unfair? It's just about how they look. Because, like you say, apparently they're intelligent and they can play sports.
No, they can play sports now. We know. No, I think rats have a long association with spreading disease and decay, and also the fact that rats will eat almost anything. And once you get a rat, and also rats will eat smaller. They'll eat baby birds. They eat ducklings. Rats will steal eggs. I mean, my neighbour in our local park, which is a couple of just around the back of our estate that we live in, said that she saw a rat take down a pigeon. So
what, just like leapt into the sky and
well, no, the pigeon was on the ground.
Okay.
It was walking around, and the rat leaped at the pigeon's neck and killed it and then dragged it off. And I mean, so I can kind of see why people. I think when a rat comes out of the bushes, all the geese will hiss aggressively, and the geese are at least 10 times the size of rats. So why are they so upset? I think the rat is a survivor, and it's, I don't know. I mean, it's going to eat anything. It's going to spread disease sometimes. The rat doesn't give a shit about human beings. They're not particularly scared of us, I don't think. London rats aren't anyway. And rats in New York apparently are huge. So from what I've heard. So I can see, and there's a long history of rats on boats and rats eating our food stores. Like, what I mean? Like, rats are just part of have been in human history forever, everywhere. So I can see why people don't like them. Yeah.
No, I've never been massively fond of them. I mean, there's some kind of really creepy stats, aren't there, about how you're never very far away from a rat.
Yeah, you're not.
Like,
no,
literally
you're not.
meters away at any one particular time.
So
quite alarming.
Yeah.
Anyway, we've wandered very, very far away from this particular minute, even further than I'd anticipated, to be fair. But no, thanks, Clara, for joining me on this last run of episodes, and hopefully we'll be back together later in the run. So I look forward to that. But yeah, thank you. Where can people find you online, actually, before we go?
So you can find me online at on Instagram at Clara Jean Jellybean. That's where I am most of these days. But you can also find me on Twitter at Clara.
Clara Jean MC, is it?
Clara Jean MC, thank you. It's been a long time since I've been on Twitter. On Clara Jean MC. I do run a podcast, but it's in hiatus at the moment because I'm trying to complete a master's degree. But hopefully when the next time I'm on the Xcast. Hopefully sometime in the future I can promote that because it'll be back up and
Well,
running.
you can promote it now because people can always go back and listen to old episodes, especially if they haven't listened to them before, can't they?
That's
So it's the tales we tell. Yeah?
The Tales We Tell. It's a podcast about gender and women in film, television, and fiction. And our first episode that we ever did years ago, but it's still relevant today, was on Scully from the X-Files. So yeah.
Great stuff. Thanks, Clara. And somebody else, I believe Kurt North will be hosting Minute 16 of the next few episodes. So the Xcast will be back very soon with coverage of the next minute of this particular movie. But until then, always remember, trust no one.